Hi guys, welcome to another video. So yeah, I'm sorry that I've not posted on this channel for a long time, but I thought I'd do a slightly different video today to somewhat break up the monotony of the videos that I had been doing on the channel in the last series, which were, you know, just each sign as far as the differences between the moon in that sign versus the sun in that sign. So I thought I'd break that up somewhat and do a different video spur of the moment today. So today, in astrology, we've got Libra Sun and Leo Moon. And honestly, I'm suffering. I feel tired as fuck. I feel absolutely exhausted. I've got a headache, reflux, which I do suffer from, but it's worse today. Feel sick. Everything's wrong. So I thought I would do this video of the laziest zodiac signs. Now, of course, this is only my personal opinion. Don't take any offence to it, and it will be edited a lot by the sign that Mars is in your personal birth chart, as well as all the other planet placements in your personal birth chart. So this is based more just on sun signs, I guess. Actually, no, it's still based on Mars, really, because Mars is the main detriment of energy in your chart. So let's say that it's based on Mars. But yeah, it's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong necessarily. This is just what I've observed. Some of it follows, you know, astrology as far as where Mars is weak, you'd expect the signs to be more lazy, and then conversely where Mars is strong, you'd expect the signs to be less lazy. Some of that does factor into my list, but a lot of it also doesn't, because my list doesn't always follow that necessarily. This is my personal observations of how I feel under each sign whenever they're up in astrology, especially in Mars. So anyway, in my personal observation, what I've noticed to be, at least for me, the laziest zodiac sign, or the sign that my body just seems to hate the energy of this sign wherever it falls, it's Leo. And I should at some point change my list of least favourite to most favourite signs again, because Leo is now definitely my least favourite sign of all. There's a lot of reasons for it. I just do not like Leo anymore at all. But Leo is also definitely the laziest zodiac sign that I've noticed. I think, like, literally, Leo is the perfect example of a lazy person rolled into one. At least from my personal observation, again, don't take it personally, but Leo is the epitome of lazy, in my opinion. They are passionate, obviously, they're fire, fixed fire, and I will say also that all of the fixed signs kind of have this tendency toward laziness because they're a fixed sign, and they're also stubborn, but I feel like other fixed signs, Taurus also has a weak Mars working against them, but because they're an earth sign, they're stable and grounded, so they know that they need to work hard and be practical in order to get money, which is what they really love more than anything else. So, although they're lazy and stubborn, they can get it together and be practical and hard-working if they know it will earn them money. And then Scorpio, they've got a strong Mars in their favour, but also whenever they feel emotional about something, they use strong inner emotion and passion in order to get over any laziness that they may experience. And then Aquarius, they're kind of just as bad as Leo, but I think because they're air, they're fueled by ideas and their mind, so their mind is a bit more active, and that helps them get over any laziness they may feel. But Leo, they're both stubborn, fixed, so immovable, fire, and also lazy at the same time, and they literally will unpassion. So if there is a certain task that they do not want to do because they're not passionate about it or they don't enjoy it, they will not do it at all. They need to be passionate about it. Fixed fire, you know, they're stubborn, they're lazy, but they're also prideful, they have a big ego, and if they operate primarily on passion and inspiration, because fire does that in general. So if they have no inspirational passion toward a certain thing that they need to do, they will not do it. They need to invest passion and inspiration in order to give them the sense of action they need to actually get over their laziness and follow a task through to completion. So if they don't have any of this inspirational passion toward this task, they will not do it. And also they're stubborn, and they don't adapt, and they won't want to lose their pride or their sense of ego by, you know, doing what someone else tells them to do. So even if you advise them to do it, they won't do it because you told them to. And Aquarius is the same in this way, actually. Even if they want to do something, they won't do it if you tell them to, because they want to do it on their own. And their ego won't allow for them to bend to your orders or commands, if you like. So anyway, yeah, Leo's the laziest sign, in my opinion. Second laziest, now this hurts a bit more to say because I do really like this sign overall, but second laziest for me is probably Libra. I'm sorry, because Libra, to be fair, they do have a weak Mars working against them, and that's a lot of the reason why, but so does Taurus. But actually I personally find Taurus to be less lazy. But Libra, they're also a cardinal sign, so they're action orientated, they're initiators, they begin everything. So you would expect that actually they would have the energy to overpower their weak Mars and not be lazy because they're cardinal. But they don't really. I think Libra is, because they're so indecisive and balanced and fair-minded, they weigh the pros and cons of every situation, which is a great trait that they have. But I do think that makes them, if not lazy, at least it makes them very slow to take action, at the very least. And yeah, it just kind of, it slows down all movement. And like Libra, they're cardinal air, and air is the fastest moving element in astrology, but Libra's actually slower, I would say, than Gemini and Aquarius, and the reason is because they're so indecisive and they're always weighing the pros and cons. They can see both sides of every situation, so they're always procrastinating. They find themselves thinking, should I do this? Should I not do this? What happens if I do this? What will happen if I don't do this? And they get caught up in their head too much about weighing the pros and cons of every situation and being as fair, diplomatic, graceful as they can be in their actions, and that's why they get lazy and slow moving. Even if not lazy, they're at least very slow moving. But another thing I'd say is that Libra, they do have a weak Mars against them, working against them, and they're just kind of quite slow. I don't really know how to describe it better, but that's kind of just what they are. They're very, very slow moving, and they care too much about other people to actually do anything that might go against what the group wants them to do. They're also easily swayed into making bad decisions, because they can be quite gullible, similar to Pisces and Cancer in that way. So again, it's quite easy to manipulate Libra into doing something that they don't want to do that could make them less productive. So say if they need to do a job at work, but they go and meet friends on their lunch break, the friends could persuade them maybe, oh, you know, come out, stay out with us longer, don't go back to work yet. They won't know if you're laid back because you're working from home. Just take this as an example. Libra will be swayed by the group opinion, and they'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll stay out like half an hour later, because they won't know that I will come back to my desk late because I'm working from home, for example. And then they'll let the group sway them into making that bad decision, which will make them more lazy and less productive. And then by the end of the day, they won't have got through their to-do list because they've been distracted by, you know, extending their lunch break by an extra half an hour because of the public opinion of the group that they were with telling them to do that. So that's another thing. Third laziest on my list, in my personal opinion, again, don't take it personally, I want to keep reiterating that. Next laziest. Personally, I struggle with this one because Taurus and Cancer should both be quite high on the list of laziest signs, but actually for me they're normally not that bad. Next I would probably say is probably Taurus, because yeah, they do again have a weak Mars working against them, and they also are, you know, very slow moving as well, worse than Libra, but they're not slow moving because they're swayed by, you know, the group opinion or anything. They're more so just slow moving because they're very stubborn again, like Leo. At least they are more practical, so if it will earn them money, they will do it, but they are very slow moving. They also can get prone to procrastination as well, very similar to Libra in that sense. And wherever Venus is strong, Mars is weak, because in that way they kind of work as opposites. So yeah, because again they're ruled by Venus, they enjoy revelling in luxury and life's, you know, sensorial pleasures and all of those sort of things, which kind of works opposite to Mars's, you know, power to drive forward and that sort of thing. So again, Taurus, they are hard working, they are practical because they're Earth, but they get caught up in enjoying pleasurable things, and let's face it, work can sometimes feel like the least pleasurable thing in the universe, especially to me. I don't know about you guys, but work can sometimes feel boring as hell. It can be like the thing you least want to do, especially on a Monday morning. But Taurus, they want to work to get the money because that's what they value, but they do get caught up too much in pleasure and life's luxuries. And even when they are working, they are very slow moving and they're very stubborn. they tend to sleep in a lot on the weekends as well. Next laziest is probably Cancer. However, I also have a lot of issues with Aquarius as well, personally. Again, my body doesn't seem to like Leo or Aquarius for some reason, energy-wise, when it's up in the chart in astrology. But Cancer is probably next because, again, I think Cancer's where Mars falls, so you would assume they would be the most lazy sign out of all of them. But personally, I don't think they are. And I think, similar to Libra, because they're a cardinal sign, and that makes them action-orientated, initiatory, pioneers in their own area of, elemental dominance, because of that, I think that does help them somewhat overpower the lazy traits they'd avoid being exposed to. Yeah, sorry guys, as I was saying, I think Cancer mainly is lazy because, not just because of their fallen Mars, which makes their Mars weak, but also just the fact that they get too caught up in their intense emotions that they feel, and it makes them, again, be prone to procrastination. It makes them, again, be prone to... They're also a sign that moves fairly slowly, actually, and they care a lot about security. The thing is, though, Cancer is actually quite a grounded sign. Like, they are quite practical. When they're not being so caught up in their emotional tornadoes, they are quite practical, actually, and grounded to a degree. Their 7th house is Capricorn, their opposite side, so they're opposite sides of the same coin to Capricorn, so they do have a side of them which is very grounded, more similar to Capricorn. So they are quite practical, Cancer, when they want to be, but they are quite slow moving, and their emotions are so strong that it causes them to get stuck in procrastination because they're worrying and because they're so emotional. So that's what happens with Cancer. Next up on the list is probably Aquarius. I was going to put them lower, but I don't know if I can really justify making them be more lazy than Taurus and Cancer on the list, so I'm going to just put them here. So yeah, the thing with Aquarius is that, again, my body doesn't seem to like their energy at all. They're my second least favourite sign, after Leo. Overall as well, but that's obviously not the purpose of this video. But so Aquarius, even though they're air, they can be pretty lazy. I think it's because they're the fixed air. So again, they're quite stubborn, and similar to their opposite Leo, they are quite sort of, I guess, prideful in the sense that they like to be rebellious and they pride themselves on being that way. So they won't do something if you suggest or tell them to do it. Even if they would want to do it, if left to their own devices, they won't do it because you've told them or asked them to do it. So again, for an example, if you were to ask an Aquarius, can you make me a coffee, please? If they were ready to turn the kettle on to make themselves a coffee, they will be like, oh, I don't want a coffee now, just so they can avoid making you a coffee, because they don't want to do it if you've told them to do it. So they would do one for you if left to their own devices. If they thought themselves, oh, maybe I'll make this person a coffee as well as me, they will do it. But as soon as you tell them, can you do it for them, they won't do it anymore for you or themselves, because they don't want to be told what to do, because they're so rebellious, which is a big reason that I don't like Aquarius anymore, is they just rebel for the sake of rebelling, which is highly annoying to me. So yeah, that sort of is an example of how Aquarius could be lazy. And again, because they're fixed, they're stubborn, it gets in the way of their productivity at times, and because they're fixed air, they're static, and also air is not always the most practical element, because obviously it's the furthest from Earth out of all the elements. It is very logical, but it's logical in the field of ideas, not logical in the material aspects of life, which is the other difference between air and earth. Now, air and earth are both logical elements. Conversely, fire and water are both emotional elements, but air and earth are both logical elements, but obviously they're opposite in that Aquarius is logical, well, air in general, is logical in the field of ideas, but earth is logical in the material aspects of life, or the physical manifestation of ideas. So the air signs will think of ideas in a logical way and propose those ideas, but it will be the earth signs who actually create out of the ideas. They'll take the ideas and they will actually make them become a reality and manifest results in the physical, material, practical world. So that's the difference there. So yeah, again, Aquarius can get too caught up in ideas and not actually make them become reality. They're too busy imagining an ideal future, but not and how that would look like, but not necessarily manifesting it in the material world. And they're not adaptable in this attitude either, because they're the fixed air sign. So that's probably where I would say their laziness mainly comes from. Anyways guys, moving on. So I have actually noticed that I've probably messed up this list order somewhat, so please accept my apologies. I would say, just to run over a bit of a recap, I would say that the laziest sign is Leo, as I say, but number 11 should be actually Pisces, I believe. And the reason I say that is because Pisces, they're so dreamy, they're always caught up in their own imaginary world, very impractical, and yeah, that's not very conducive. It doesn't lend itself really toward hard work. Plus Mercury's fallen in their sign, so they get brain fog quite easily and quite often, making it hard for them to concentrate. And yeah, I just don't really think that Pisces is very orientated towards hard work. So yeah guys, please accept my apologies for somewhat screwing up the video, but Pisces is probably number 11, I would say, on my list actually. They're too dreamy. They're not a cardinal sign either, so they don't have any initiatory potential either really. They kind of just go with the flow way too much, and they're a bit too chilled out, relaxed and carefree as far as work. Like, they don't want to do that. They would much rather sleep and dream, or, you know, similar to Aquarius, dwell on their imagination and their ideas rather than actually work in the material world, the physical reality. And then also they are very indecisive as well, not very reliable, and like Cancer, they are weighed down by their intense emotions, which causes them worry, anxiety and procrastination. So 11 is Pisces, and then the others that I said in the list already are actually the same order. It's just I missed out Pisces, so my apologies about that. So Libra will be 10, and then Taurus will be 9, Cancer will be 8, and then Aquarius will be 7, so the next sign on the list, coming in at number 6, now this is going to be quite a controversial one, but personally I've put Scorpio. Now obviously the reason I'm saying this is going to be a controversial one is that Scorpio has a strong Mars, obviously, and they also have Pluto ruling them too, so those two together should be a mix of two highly energetic planets. But for me personally, I don't know if it's because my natal Mars is Aries, but Scorpio sort of washes me out. Whenever it's in the moon especially, I tend to just feel very washed out. And again, I in general just feel like Scorpio's energy is restricted somewhat over the other two signs that have strong Mars presence, which is Aries and Capricorn. I feel like Scorpio is the lowest out of those three as far as energy, because again, the emotions kind of get in the way of their actions at times. It slows movement for them and can give them procrastination, but Scorpio does seem to be the least affected by that of the other water signs, Cancer and Pisces, because they are the most confident in their beliefs. They kind of are the most sort of sure of themselves, and they kind of know the most what's going on. So it doesn't limit them as much as Cancer and Pisces. Plus they do have that strong Mars and Pluto placement for decisiveness. But it can still sometimes slow down their movement. And again, I feel like Scorpio is not like necessarily the most practical sign. They do, like Cancer, have quite a practical side to them that's fairly grounded. But again, their emotions are so intense that it can interfere with their practicality. And just the fact they're a fixed sign, I think. All the fixed signs are lazy if they allow their stubbornness to take over, like I've explained earlier on. 5 on the list is Virgo, in my opinion. And now, Virgo is kind of well known as one of the most hardworking and least lazy signs, and I guess having it at 5 on my list sort of reflects that to a degree, but I disagree. There's a lot of websites that say Virgo is the most hardworking and energetic sign of all, and I highly disagree with that. Personally, when Virgo's up, I feel pretty washed out and drained, and I definitely don't feel like they're the most energetic sign in the zodiac. I also wouldn't say they're necessarily energetic. I would say it's more so because they are ruled by Mercury, similar energy to Gemini, but less so, I'd say, is this sort of mental energy. They're very much energetic when it's orientated towards thoughts and logic and thought processes, but not necessarily like physically energetic. They can be, and they are undoubtedly hard workers. They're very detail orientated and they're perfectionists, so they always push themselves to work harder and harder in order to chase perfection. But I just disagree with the fact that they're the most energetic sign in the zodiac. They're just not. Like, I just don't think they are. They are one of the most hard working signs, in a practical sense, obviously, but also because they're mutable, Earth, they're somewhat scattered. Like, obviously, it's kind of weird to think of Earth not being stable because obviously Earth is, the ground you walk on. It's stable as anything. You couldn't find anything more stable. But therefore, the fact that Virgo's mutable, it means they're unstable. But it's hard to think of a real world example for Earth that's, Earth, yet not stable, because obviously Earth is stable. But yeah, Virgo's quite fleeting. They're quite unsteady. They're kind of energy that comes and goes. Because I like to describe the mutable quality is you've got your cardinal, which is pushing outwards from inside of you to the outside world. Fixed is inwardly radiating energy, which is coming into you. But then mutable is kind of, it comes out into the world from you, then it comes back into you, radiates back in, and then you throw it out again into the world, and then it fades, and then it comes back in, and you throw it out again, it fades, comes back in. So that's kind of the chaotic sort of movement that spins in a circle almost. That's mutable. So even though Virgo is Earth, and obviously that means they're inherently stable, they are fleeting. They're not Earth, which is steady. They're kind of like clay. You can mold them fairly easily. They're quite a soft Earth in that way. Taurus is a soft Earth too, but they're very steady. They're almost like soil or grass or something. But Virgo is more like clay or sand. It's something that you could easily move with your bare hands, that sort of thing. So I guess if they get into a sort of lazy mindset, it could easily turn them off being as practical as they normally are. And when they relax, they tend to get more lazy because they're not pushing themselves to be perfectionists so hard any longer. So yeah, I feel like because they're mutable, they're not always necessarily most reliable of this earth, and when they decide to relax a bit, they can indulge the lazy side then. Now, another thing I highly disagree about on most websites is that I read that Virgo is the most hard-working energetic sign, and conversely, I also read that Sagittarius is actually the laziest zodiac sign of all. And again, similar to Virgo, but even more strongly, I very much disagree with that. I do not see how on earth you can say that Sagittarius is the laziest zodiac sign. I guess when it comes to practical real world activities, you could argue they kind of are, because they're very much about, Jupiter, open horizons, and, pushing for better and better from life and travel and all these new experiences that are exotic. So yeah, that doesn't really lend itself, similar to Pisces in a way, it's quite idealistic, dreamy sort of energy from Jupiter, and it doesn't lend itself well to hard work and responsibility. However, Sagittarius, Jupiter, their ruler, is also a very lazy planet as well in its energy type. But Sagittarius, I just think that you can't call them lazy personally, because they're too dynamic to be lazy. They're filled with too much nervous energy to just sit around and do nothing. Like, Sagittarius is a very restless energy. It's not like Leo, which is more stable. Like, you cannot contain Sagittarius energy. Like, it's fire that's moving in all directions. They cannot sit still, similar to their opposite Gemini in that way. They're filled with nervous energy and tension if they don't use it. So they can't be lazy, because if they become a couch potato, they just get very, very tense and irritable because they want to be moving around a lot and being active, similar to their opposite Gemini. So they can't be a couch potato. So I disagree that they're the laziest sign, because if they force themselves to be lazy, they're going to get very irritated, and not to mention bored out of their skull. So that's just that. I don't think they can be lazy for too long because they're too restless for it. That leads me on to number 3 on my list then, which is actually Gemini. So again, for a similar reason, I've heard less people say that Gemini is lazy when compared to Sagittarius. People tend to say Gemini is less lazy than Sags, which generally I would agree with. But again, 4 and 3, I would say they're both not lazy at all. And again, for a similar reason, Gemini is filled with too much nervous energy and tension if they're not using it. So similar to Sagittarius, they cannot be a couch potato however hard they try, because they would be way too restless and tense if they allowed themselves to do that. Sorry if you just heard that noise, by the way, it's my laptop. So number 2 is Capricorn, in my opinion, and now Capricorn is the sign that exalts, in other words, strengthens Mars. So you would think that Capricorn would be the most energetic sign. Personally, though, I would say Aries is still the most, and don't know if it's just because my natal birth chart has Mars and Aries recently, though I've not really been feeling that benefit for whatever reason. Maybe it's post-COVID fatigue, but I've not been feeling that benefit from fire at the moment, even Aries specifically, but nonetheless that is still my natal chart Mars placement, so maybe that's why. But Aries I just feel like is they're literally cardinal fire, so they're action orientated, and obviously action is, the key word for Aries. If they don't move or, initiate new projects at the very least, almost constantly at all times, they're going to get incredibly restless. They're not as unstable in their energy as Sagittarius or Gemini, but they do still have this need to be action orientated, and Aries cannot just sit around. Neither can Capricorn, but I think Capricorn, similar to Virgo, they channel this energy more into work and practical professional activities. So if you're judging by laziness or hard working on the basis of who's the most hard working at work, for example, then it would definitely be Capricorn was the winner by a mile. Second runner up would probably be Virgo in that case. But if you're talking about just, in general being an active person, then Capricorn, they're kind of slow. I mean, they're cardinal Earth. So Capricorn puts the energy into practical endeavours, but Aries puts the energy into literally anything that they want to do. Anything that they decide to do, which is to do with physical action, moving their body physically, or, using their minds. Anything that is active is what Aries is going to represent, whereas Capricorn is more channeled into just professional, practical endeavours. And they're tireless in those endeavours, those said in practical endeavours, but they're not as physically active, I would say, as Aries. Another thing with Aries, though, is that they are very energetic when they first release this energy, but the issue with Aries is that it's not always there, because it is the cardinal fire mode, and they have to make the fire themselves. And if they don't, it isn't there as much anymore, and then they do become lazy. But for Aries, that's more they just get burnt out and crashed because they've done 1,000,001 things during their day. So obviously they'll then get burnt out and crashed and get really exhausted. But then all they'll need to do is sleep it off, and then the next day they're back to, bouncing off the walls again, typically. So Aries, it's they do so much physically that they then burn themselves out and crash, and they feel exhausted. But then as soon as they sleep, the next day they're back to it again. Capricorn is more endurance. So the energy yield at first is not as intense, but it's more persevering. And Scorpio as well is similar to Capricorn in the sense that it's not necessarily a strong initial release like Aries. It's more like a slow and steady output of energy, if you like. It's almost like, complex carbohydrates versus sugar. Sugar is Aries. You take it in, you get an immediate boost of energy, but then it doesn't last long, and then you get a crash after, most of the time, especially if you have a lot of it. Scorpio and Capricorn's more like bread. It's like complex carbohydrates that take longer to be absorbed in your body, so they provide slowly releasing energy throughout the day for your body, but they don't give you a sudden rush of, sugar that gives you a sudden burst of energy, but then after a while it wears off and you get really crashed and burnt out. It's more a slow and steady release of energy. So it's not quick, it's not fast, but it's like a slow discharge of energy which lasts throughout the day. It's like a longer sort of lasting energy. Capricorn, again, they do need to coordinate it. So really Scorpio is probably the most reliable as far as, a slow discharge of energy throughout the day, but they also are the slowest sort of discharge of energy. And then another example would be Aries is more like a sprinter, and then Capricorn would be more of a long distance runner. Scorpio again would be more likely to be like long distance runner than a sprinter, which is more the Aries archetype. But anyway, this video's gone on for long enough. I hope you guys got some sense out of this. Sorry for my little mess up where I missed out Pisces at the start of the video. So I'll just do a quick recap again of exactly what my order is from laziest to most lazy to least lazy. In my personal opinion, again, don't take offence, but here's just a rundown again one last time so that no one's uncertain of what my list is. So 12 Leo, 11 Pisces, 10 Libra, 9 Taurus, 8 Cancer, 7 Aquarius, 6 Scorpio, 5 Virgo, 4 Sagittarius, 3 Gemini, 2 Capricorn and 1 Aries. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.